What's up, everybody? My name's Trent. This is Geek Off The Street. One half of Geek Off The Street. Mark's running a little late, but he'll be here in a second. This week is a super special episode. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But it's a very special episode because one, this is the less important part, but it's our 4-year anniversary. We've been doing this show for 4 long years. Geek Off The Street started in March of 2021. Yes, and we've been doing the show for about 4 years now. We're pretty excited to talk about that. But the most important part of this episode is that we have a very special guest today. We have Mr. Henry San Miguel from the incredible Geek Speak Show. We owe a lot of our growth and a lot of our decisions on our show to Mr. Henry because he, for some reason, sought us out and found us in the first 3 weeks of our show. We had us on, and he's kind of mentored us and gave us a lot of information to get the show going. And for the first time, I don't know why it took 4 years to get you on the show, but we finally do have Henry here to talk with us on our 4-year anniversary. Henry, dude, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, and I remember you guys. This was the running joke back then, but it was true. You guys were literally in diapers back then, and now you're in pull-ups.
I think
I
it's
guess
pull-ups now,
you've
right?
advanced you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Graduated to
yeah.
pull-ups.
No, but no, that So I was smiling as you were saying that because I do remember that. At first, I can't believe it's been 4 years. Time really does fly when you're
Mm.
having fun. I've had a lot of fun. I've told both of you and Mark, and when he comes on, I'll tell him. I have fun listening to you guys, and that's the reason why I remember when we when we first I reached out to you guys. I think I emailed you or DM'd you
Yep,
somehow, but
week three of our show,
I
yeah.
yeah, and I invited Trent to come here to my studio, and the whole time, every other question was, "Why us? But why us? But like, why us? Why are we so special?
Yeah.
And why you?" 4 years later, it's still the same reason why. It's because exactly what I said. It's fun. There at this point, there are not a million, but a lot of geek culture themed everything: podcasts, YouTube channels, TikToks, um, platforms like Collider, and things like that. There's everyone talks about the movies, the shows that we all watch, but you guys do it in a way that is very, very reminiscent to when I started. And I haven't been doing this for thousands and thousands of years, but in the beginning, when I started, the only really geek themed podcast or any platforms out there was Chris Hardwick's Nerdist and the
Mhm.
Geek Speak Show. We started a week apart from each other, and even though we kind of talked about the same things, the way we did it was different from because back then the internet wasn't what it was. These platforms weren't what they were. People would tweet about things, but not everybody was on Twitter. Not every People had just gone away from Facebook. It was phasing its way out, and was only grandmas and great grandmas that were left on Facebook at that time. So people were stopped talking on Facebook, and they were slowly moving over to Twitter. uh, but these shows, Chris was um, more of a comedian because he was a comedian, and he had more comedians, and it was more of a funny way to talk about geek culture, about nerd culture. He was on Geek Speak a few times, and I went on his a couple of times. But the Geek Speak show was more 'cause, the way why I started was a continuation of what I was doing in radio, because I'd been in radio all of my adult life. I got introduced to it when I was 10 years old, and in radio, even today is the same case. In radio, there is no Geek Speak show or Geek Off the Street kind of show. They'll talk about Star Wars made this much, or the new Marvel movie made this much, the new DC movie made this, or so and so's cast as Superman, or all of this. And not they don't talk about everything. They just talk about whatever they think is big news. But that's it. They don't get deep into it. In talk radio, most of it is all politics, sports, self help, or religion, and that's about it. um Pop culture, it's usually who's very TMZ, who's dating who, or show my age, National Enquirer kind of thing. Who's
Yeah.
dating who, so and so's divorced, and they've been dating an alien from whatever in my refrigerator, those kind of things. But
Mhm.
nobody really took it seriously. So when I was in radio, and talk radio especially, that's when I thought, well, why isn't somebody talking about the movies that we like? the way they talk about sports or politics or whatever. I mean, because with politics, especially recently, people will almost literally kill each other over, "Like, my guy is better," or I hate
Yeah.
this, you're that."
Yeah.
The reality, that's not always a good thing. It's the same case with geek culture, with fandoms. Um, I think the last time Mark was on my show on the issues of the
Mhm.
day, where we kind of you guys do, we talk about stuff that's going on. We mentioned I forget who it is, but somebody made a list of the top 10 most toxic fandoms. Star Wars was at the top, was number one,
Yeah, hands down.
and I'm wearing my Star Trek shirt today. Star Trek, I think, was at the bottom, and Mark and I talked about on that episode of that. Yeah, the Star Trek fans, maybe because they're a little older, Star Trek's been around for a while.
Mhm.
They're kind of used to, there's lulls. There's sometimes when there won't be any good Star Trek, but then there's good Star Trek. So they're used to that. Star Wars fans, I don't know what it is. I can't explain why. It's like it's kind of like Marvel fans. They expect, or even not even just Marvel fans, just people that enjoy the MCU movies. They
Mhm.
expect everything to be Endgame, and
Right.
that's just not the case. If you look back and really look at it without rose-colored Marvel glasses, everything in Phase One wasn't Endgame either. There were some misses in Phase One, but they weren't terrible misses. Not like what from Endgame to now. Not what
Mhm.
they've had there. So, but with Star Wars, it's kind of that. I think that's the case. Is that people expect everything to be Empire Strikes Back, and
Yeah.
we've talked about it on Geek Speak Show. I don't care what anybody says. No, Andor is not the best Star Wars. Empire Strikes Back is and always will be the best Star Wars you will ever see. Period. End of story.
Period, no argument.
So
Yeah, no argument.
if you want to compare anything to that, yeah, nothing's going to compare to The Empire Strikes Back. So
Mhm.
um, that's that's why I wanted to do create a show, a podcast like the Geek Speak Show, be plain and simple, because nobody was talking about it on radio. Nobody was talking about it, and with when I first started this, believe it or not, podcasting wasn't what it is now. Um,
Mhm.
very few people actually knew what it was or listened. Nobody knew how to listen to, because people don't believe this when I say it, but back then when I started the show in 2010, not everybody had a smartphone.
Mhm.
iPhones were around, but the smartphones that we know, we were barely coming out of the flip phone phase at that
Right.
point. iPhone was That's it was the coolest thing ever, because like, oh, look at that, it doesn't flip or nothing. Excuse me. If you remember, if you don't believe me, go and watch, I think, either the first or the second Matrix movie. Remember, even there, they didn't have smartphones. They had the
Oh,
flip
yeah.
phone, the
The
Nokia
slide
one.
one, yeah, Nokia
Even
slide
they
phone, yeah.
couldn't, yeah, even they couldn't predict that. As cool as everything was in the Matrix, that they're gonna have these cool phones. Even they couldn't predict the iPhone. So people didn't have those. So and the only way you could listen to podcasts back then was through iPods, which is why
Yeah.
they're called podcasts to begin with. But not everybody owned an iPod, because
Mhm.
again, it was new. Everybody had Walkmans. Like, what? I'm fine with my Walkman. Why would I need an iPod for it? So iPods were, podcasts were, they were listened to by the first adopters, the people that are like, oh, I like this new tech. I listen to it, and they were in a lot of podcasts. They're not, especially not movie
Mhm.
themed or geek culture for sure. They were in a lot of podcasts like that. So um, on radio, nobody wanted to do that. And believe me, I tried to start the Geek Speak Show on a radio station. They didn't want to do that. So I said, which has been the theme of my life forever.
Mhm.
If somebody tells me no, it's like, that saying, "Hold my beer." It's like, okay, watch me. I see it as a challenge. Watch, I'll do it. Then. I didn't do it on radio, obviously, but I've created the Geek Speak Show,
Mhm.
and it was live on internet radio. It was live 5 days a week, and it was great. It was just like radio, like a radio talk show. Instead of talking about politics, we would talk about the Marvel movies, Inception, because Inception had just come out back then. I had guests just like I did on radio. I had Nicholas Meyer talk about Star Trek Two. What was it like? Um, what were the original cast, Shatner and everybody? What were they like on the last day? Because he also directed The Undiscovered Country, which is the last
Mhm.
movie with all of them. He said, I asked him, well, what were they like on set? Because they knew it was the last time they would ever play those characters. So we talked about that. Jeff Loeb came on when he just became head of Marvel
Nice.
TV. So, and he gave us a lot of stuff that started a long friendship and a friendship of secrets because he told us some things, and then it was, shh, you can't talk about that. You can't
Yeah,
say that. But obviously it worked, and so I forget what you initially asked me, but I moved into like why I created the Geek Speak show. So
yeah,
you can tell I love doing talk radio because
yeah.
you got to shut me up. Otherwise, I'll just keep going forever.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, my dad just told me the other day that we had like relatives that didn't know I talk a lot. They're just like, "Oh yeah, you're the quiet one of the family." And then my dad's like, "No, he has a show that he's been doing for 4 years. He's not the quiet one of the family."
Trent, he
Yeah,
talks.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, did you have like I know that you're a creative person and you've done this show because you love geek culture and all this stuff, but did you have foresight into how it was going to become, like, if it was gonna be like the podcast world or the social media or the pod or just the radio world? Did you have foresight on how this was gonna be, like, how big it was gonna become? Like, from a business standpoint, I
No,
guess?
no, no one did because again, when I started this, everyone in radio, whether it was music, whether it was talk radio, what no matter what you were doing in radio, in TV, even more, they looked down their nose at people that were doing YouTube channels, and they still do in a
Mhm.
way. People that were doing YouTube channels or podcasts, and there weren't a lot back then, like I said, but the few people that did do podcasts, they would look down their nose like, "Pfft, they're not professionals. They don't do it like us." And I will say, in the beginning, when I first started listening to podcast, not hosting, but when I started listening to podcast, I questioned, like, really, people listen to this? Because again, remember, I had a trained ear for radio, for
Mhm.
TV, where there's formats and go to commercial, all that stuff. That what radio and TV sound like still today, to this day. So when I listened to these podcasts, and it was very informal. There's no introing. There's no, and they it's called a reset. Like when in radio, when you go to commercial, you come back and you reset. Welcome back to the show. So we're talking to Trent Tucker from Geek Off the Street. You got to reset it because new people have come in after the commercial break. In podcasts, you don't have that. It's just literally a conversation. Like we could be talking here for 5 hours, and we do or more, but there's no
Yeah,
reset. Most people just hang through. I mean, the most popular podcast today, Joe Rogan, he goes on for 5 hours talking about
Mhm.
sometimes nothing, sometimes cool stuff. But that's podcast. That's what podcast has become. So did I see what it was going to become? Absolutely not. Nobody did. Even the podcasters, they thought it was just going to be a hobby. Now, today, right now, 2025, and I have a lot of kids from my point of view. When you get to my age, everybody's a kid. But influencers, podcast hosts, they ask me, "Hey, do you think I can? You think I can have a great career, long career with this?" And my answer is honestly, I have no idea, because this is so young that you can't compare it to anything. You can compare it to TV, but it's not the same format as TV. It's not the same business model as TV. The monetizing part, I still don't understand how people can become millionaires, billionaires doing YouTube, because if you're making that much money off of YouTube, YouTube should be broke by now. That I mean,
Mm.
that's just how business works. And if they're not, obviously they're not, then that means YouTube is actually making more money than the creators are.
Right.
That's just the way business works. So, call me old, but that's just the part that I don't understand. But when people ask me today the same question you asked me, my answer is I have no idea. I mean, ask me again in another 10, 15 years, when it's been around for 2 plus or 3 plus decades at that point, if there are still influencers. And the most important thing is the audience still going to be there? Because as you all know, these influencers, these platforms, YouTube, all these things, TikTok, and what we're doing live shows here,
Mhm.
those are seen by younger people, younger generations. The older generations, like the boomers, and even older than that, the few that are left from the greatest generation, maybe two or three of them, they don't watch this stuff. They
Mhm.
don't care about what we're talking. They're used to, the 11 o'clock news and all that. They're not used to instant informations. So my question is the audience that's watching now, when they start getting older, when they start getting married, starting lives, are they going to have time or even want to make time to keep watching these platforms? My
Mhm.
guess is probably not, because as you may not know, when you start a family, when you start a career, yeah, it's gonna take up most of your time. You're barely gonna have time to watch it like you do now. So that's why I say I don't know. I don't know if this can be a career, a long, long career.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That's interesting. I know that me and RJ, our previous host, God, I think in 2011 we shot one review video on camera, and we're like, oh yeah, we're gonna start reviewing movies, and we just never did. We did it once, and then we are just like, that's not for us. And now looking back, it's like, man, that if we would have kept going, that would have been something, you know. We would have been one of the first, in 2011, that we would one of the first review channels on YouTube to be doing that kind
Yeah.
of stuff, and yeah.
But see, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is that again? Call me older. I don't get that. I mean, I don't get why I would if I were to go back to 1982 and tell little me when I'm getting excited about GI Joe cartoons and all the
Mm.
stuff that came out back then. If you were to tell me, someday somebody's gonna want to watch you reacting to a GI Joe commercial, I think you were crazy. Like, who would care about my reaction to a commercial? But
Yeah.
now, every time a Marvel movie or Marvel teaser, the new Superman teaser, or a new Star Wars or some show on Netflix comes out, 20,000. Here's my reaction to the trailer. Here's the trailer and what you missed. Like, can I watch it? Why do I need you to
Yeah.
tell me what I missed
I
on a
need my own.
trailer?
Yeah, I like to have my own
And again,
reaction.
I don't get that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I still don't
but
understand.
but
I
there's
don't.
an audience for it.
Yeah, no, I still don't understand like game streaming. Like people watch other people play video games. Like why wouldn't you just want to play the game yourself? But it's a huge market.
Well,
Yeah.
that one I do because, and you know this because I have a friend who used to be a co-host here.
Hmm.
When they watch her, I don't. I think the last thing they care about is how she's
How
gaming.
she if she's a good
So
gamer
there's
or
that
not.
side. There's that
Yeah.
side too.
Hmm.
But yeah, just watching somebody play a video game, yeah, I don't get that either.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it depends on who's playing the video game, you know? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good part. Well, I mean, I wasn't really gonna get into this, but since you've been doing this for so long and you've been a part of the geek culture for so long, like 15 years, at least for the show, but you've been a geek your whole life, right? Do
yeah.
you? Well, you know what? Shoot, just give us a give. You know, let's do the geek cred thing that I do with everybody we have on the show. What was your draw into geek culture, and what's kept you there your whole life?
Okay, before we answer, cut this part out. Hang on.
Okay.
Felt like a funny thing in my tickle in my throat,
Oh, all good.
but we'll pick it up from here.
Yeah, yeah.
3, 2, 1. Here's your cue. Well, that actually is a great question because I was watching actually you guys' episode with Mr. Rant like a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago, and as he was
Mr. Ant.
answering that question, I realized, wait, uh, you've never asked me that. I never actually
Mhm.
told you the story why, and it goes back to when I was 4 years old. When I was four, I don't remember a lot, but when I was 4 years old, the two big things happened in my life that really shaped who and what I am to this day. One, this little movie came out called Star Wars in theaters.
Okay.
And I was 4 years old. I went to see it. I was living in San Francisco at the time. I went to see it at the Coronet Theater, which became a tradition to go watch it there. Even
Mhm.
George Lucas used to show up on opening nights to introduce it. Surprise! Hey, George Lucas is here. Then Rick McCullum, the producer, would show up and introduce it. So it became a thing. But back then, um, there was no lines, nothing, because nobody had any idea what Star Wars was. We'd never seen anything like that. I
Mhm.
mean, I was only four, but even people that were older back then, they were just used to disaster films because we would have Earthquake and those kind of movies, or vigilante films like Death Wish and the Clint Eastwood movies.
Right.
So nobody was really and sci-fi science fiction was boring, honestly. I mean, it was 2001 where ships were moving this slow, and it's just "Good morning, Dave," and I was like, "Okay," or Planet of the Apes, which wasn't really sci-fi, but it was sci-fi at the same time.
Mhm.
No one had seen anything like this, starting with the story, the characters, the special effects, and I remember sitting in the movie theater, um, because I went to see it. I didn't go see it on opening day. I went that weekend because a lot of people may remember or may not know. Star Wars, the first Star Wars actually opened on a Wednesday, which was rare.
Oh, wow.
It was rare back then for movies to open on Wednesdays because there were no blockbusters yet until Star Wars came out. So the reason why movies would open, I learned later, movies would open on Wednesdays back then is because they didn't believe in those movies and they figured, well, nobody's
Oh,
going to go
interesting.
anyway. So, and also back then, theaters used to have this thing that Wednesdays were usually like 2 for 1 or matinee all day long or something. They knew people weren't going to go see it. So, like, we're not going to make money anyway. So, put it on the cheap hours. So, that's when Star Wars came out on a Wednesday. By Thursday, by Friday, everybody knew, word of mouth everywhere. Everybody knew, and everybody had to go see Star Wars. And I remember my earliest memory, and this is where my geek beginnings, if you will, begin. Um, is being in line at the Coronet Theater in San Francisco. I don't even know if the restaurant is still there. I know the Coronet Theater itself is not there anymore. I don't know if this restaurant is there or not. I don't think so because I went looking for it when I got older and I couldn't find it. But I remember chickens on a rotisserie just spinning, and we were standing in line for a long time
Mm,
because I remember that at 4 years old because we'd gone to see. I remember watching Rocky 2 and Jaws, but we just walked in. We never waited in line. That was the first time I ever waited in line for anything, especially for a movie. And even at 4, I thought it was weird. Like, why are we waiting in line? And this is weird. Um, and I don't remember anything after that. I remember watching the chickens, being cooked, turn as we were
yeah.
waiting in line. There were a lot of people there, a lot of excitement. I'm sure a lot of people were going for the second or third time at that point, but I'd never, and I didn't know what it was. The only reason why we knew is because my sister, she was in high school at the time. Her friends started talking about, hey, you got to go see this movie. You got to go see this movie. So she's the one that made us all go, and that's why we were there. But I remember anything after that. I remember taking my seat or walking in. None of that. What I do remember, I don't even remember trailers if there were any. But what I do remember is when the screen went dark and those blue letters came up long time ago in a galaxy far far. And I had no idea what that, because I'd never had to read a movie before either.
Yeah.
Before the movies just started. And this one has that. And then I remember jumping because the theme came on, dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
and then the crawl came on. I don't think I read it, or if I did, I didn't know what it meant because again I was 4 years old.
Mhm.
But like everybody, and everybody's talked about this, I was one of those where my mouth was open as the Star Destroyer kept going and going and going.
Mm,
No one had ever seen anything like we'd seen 2001, but it wasn't like this where it wasn't slow. It was moving and it was shooting at another smaller ship, and that kind of gave you an idea of how big this Star Destroyer was. And then if that wasn't enough, then we go into a hallway and there's all these guys that come in. They look like soldiers, and these other guys that blow up the door and they're shooting, and I'm hooked. And from that point
yeah.
on, I, even at 4 years old, I knew I was watching something special. And then when we left, I don't remember the bus ride or car or anything. I don't remember going home, but I remember talking about it. Wanted to talk about it with my friends in school. Now, I was always the weird kid. That's why nobody sat with me at lunch. I was the one that read comic books, liked sci-fi, likes this Star Wars movie. Back then, believe it or not everybody liked Star Wars right away. Um, I did. I loved it from day one.
Mhm.
So my mom, she bought me uh, Star Wars T-shirts, and I've had this not argument, but this conversation with some people from Lucasfilm that I've had on the Geek Speak show. I don't. I remember getting the toys. I think that Christmas, but the story says that the toys weren't available until a year after.
Mhm.
But I'm telling you, and I know some other people that are my age, they also remember playing with the toys that summer and that Christmas. So I don't know where the stories.
Oh,
It's an urban legend that we'll never know the truth. But I remember that's also another memory that I remember, which made help me make me into the geek that I am today.
mm.
Um, there was one morning. This was after I watched the movie, obviously. There was one morning, I want to say summer. I walked into the kitchen because the door was closed, and we never had the door to the kitchen closed unless my mom was cooking or something. But it was in the morning, so I figured like, why is the door closed? So I opened the door, and on the table were the land speeder, I think 4 figures: Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, and some other ones. A Tie Fighter, the X-wing. This is the toys.
Mhm.
The X-wing, that wasn't even Christmas, but that was the greatest. I'll say Christmas, quote unquote,
Yeah.
in July if it was July. So I remember getting the toys, and I would spend hours. I wouldn't go outside and nothing. When I went outside to the yard, I would take the toys with me and be playing with them,
Mm,
making up my own adventures. So because of that, again, I had a sister, but she was way older than me. We didn't really have a lot in common. She was in high school at the time. I was a kid, so she was doing high school stuff. So I you could technically say I was an only child. I had nobody to play with. Nobody played with me because I wasn't part of the cool crowd. So I
mm.
had to. My friends were Luke Skywalker and Tie Fighters and X Wings. So
Mm,
and Spider Man comic books. Uh, DC. I this is where the not hate, but this is where I didn't I read DC comic books, but they really didn't speak to me other than Batman. Batman has
mm.
always been my favorite. Superman, I liked him, but I always thought he was. I mean, you can't kill him. He's like the most powerful being on the planet,
Yeah.
except for Kryptonite. So it was like, okay, what excitement is there? Nothing can hurt him. But Batman, I always thought he was interesting because he had no superpowers. His superpowers were money,
Mhm.
and he can build whatever gadget or Batmobile that he needed. And he was very, very smart. He was a detective back then, and it's the stories have shifted a little bit over the years, but he is the world's greatest detective. At least when I started reading it, so I always liked Batman. The other ones they weren't realistic because they all lived in Gotham, Metropolis, some made up names. When I would read Marvel comics, they were in most of them in New York, some over here, but most of them in New York. And I spent a lot of summers in New York, so it was streets and places that I knew. And when I used to go to New York, I remember I was a kid. Remember, I used to look up, hoping I would see the Fantastic Car flying by or Spider Man swinging by. I was like,
Yeah.
isn't this where the Baxter Building's supposed to be? So that's why I liked Marvel because it was more real. Yeah, I know we're talking about comic books, but it was more real to me. It was based
Mhm. A
in the
little
real
more
world.
grounded, yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's not that I don't like DC. It was just DC was just it just didn't seem cartoony to me, be it with the made up names and some of the powers, Aquaman, and and things like that. So, but that was my beginning. Like a lot of people with Star Wars, the original Star Wars, watching it in theaters, reading comic books, watching the Spider Man cartoons.
Mhm.
I remember the first time I saw Spider Man was actually on the Electric Company. I don't remember why, but he used to be on the Electric Company, and I said, "Hey, that's the guy I read in the book." So everything that I watched, whether it was Sesame Street, the Electric Company, geek culture somehow crept into it. Even the Muppet Show, Luke Skywalker was there. You've all probably seen it on YouTube now, the clips with Mark Hamill
Mhm.
talking to Kermit and Miss Piggy.
Yeah.
Even he was there. The droids were there, and I was like, well, okay, this I can't be the only one. Everybody must like this stuff. So I thought everybody liked it. Come to find out in school, that wasn't the case because I was made fun of. I had the Star Wars lunch boxes. They were kicked across the yard and thrown up
Mhm.
into a tree. Oh, he likes that stuff. I took the figures one time for show and tell. That was the last time because I think they broke them or something. Somebody took them
What?
at Reese's.
Those
Well, they didn't know.
bastards.
Yeah. So when I tell my kids today, it's like, hey, I got the scars to show for it. I really do because
Mm.
I wasn't thrown in the locker. I know that's the stereotype, but well, probably because we didn't have lockers in my school. But if we did, I probably would have been
Yeah.
one that was thrown into the
Same.
lockers.
Same, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's pretty that's yeah, that's to be there on the opening of Star Wars is something that like that of the things that I would want to see, that was one of them. My dad always talks about he grew up in the my dad's born in 54, so he kind of grew up in the 60s, and he got to see,
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix. He got to see a lot of the big rock stars, all the Motown movement stuff. He got to see all that because he was on the ground floor of it, and that's also really incredible, informative. But for me, being in the geek world and being having this thing be so important to me, seeing Star Wars is like the all time thing I would have wanted to do. So being able to see that firsthand, I guess, has got to be one of the coolest things.
Well, wait. Well, see, I've heard a lot of people say that, but let me ask you this interesting question.
Mhm.
Yes, you want to go back and be there at that time, but like I said, I was 4. How old would you want to be if you were there to see it in the theater?
Uh, that's a good point because as if you're an adolescent, if you're not, or if you're young, if you're 9, 10, you enjoy it for a specific reason. But if you're older, you could probably see the more technological sides of it, or the storytelling or the character development. So maybe as a I think I was really starting to understand storytelling and writing when I was 14, 15. So maybe that age would have been cool to see it. Probably for me, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah, I mean, a good
yeah,
transition
because
stage.
yeah, I always tell people that's also another reason why I really like Star Wars because it literally grew with well, it didn't grow with me, but I grew with it,
Hmm.
meaning pretty much what you said. When I was 4 and I saw it, like I said, all I saw was like, "Oh, cool, pew pew pew, and lightsabers, and then
Hmm.
Darth Vader, all this stuff." I didn't understand any of the story, the nuances in the story. I didn't understand um, why Princess Leia said, "Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?" It didn't mean nothing to me. I was like, "Okay."
Hmm.
All that stuff. I didn't understand Han Solo, and till later why he shot first, why it's important that it wasn't changed. I didn't understand any of that.
Yeah.
I didn't in Empire still. I didn't understand um, even in the original Star Wars. I didn't understand when Luke is telling Han, so or Han says, "What do you think? You think a princess and a guy like me?" No,
No.
I didn't get what that meant because to me at 4 years old, girls were like, "Ugh," and so I wouldn't
Yeah.
think that way. It wasn't until later that I started to understand, and then I started questioning George. What were you thinking? That's a
Yeah.
sister. What's wrong with you? But yeah,
Right.
I mean, as I understand, it was Star Wars. The beauty of it was Star Wars became a different story as I got older because,
Mm.
like you said,
Mhm.
once I started understanding the nuances, the behind the between the lines of the lines in that the character spoke, then it was a completely different story. When I understood the father son dynamic, the light side, the dark side of the Force, the Return of the Jedi battle. Once I understood all of that, then yeah, it was more than just a space movie to me.
Mhm. Yeah. Man, that's freaking awesome. Star Wars is, I think, still to this day my favorite fan. I remember when I was a kid and I saw Empire a lot, and just the VHS cover that had it was just the helmet of the stormtrooper on the front, and my dad had a karate mask that he had for training, and I would put it on and run around and pretend to be a stormtrooper when I was probably, I think, 5 or 6, and that was just, I remember that like distinctly from when I was a kid.
Would you want a karate one though? If you, I mean, a stormtrooper one if you're doing karate, because then you're gonna miss.
Yeah, exactly. There's no precision, and karate is all about precision. Yeah, precision and control. So, but it was the only thing that was white. That was the only thing that was white that I could wear that would make me feel like a stormtrooper. So, yeah. But yeah, Star Wars has always been my favorite fandom, man, and that's well, fandom maybe not necessarily, but IP, my favorite thing. The fandom's a
Yeah.
little scary, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Yeah, definitely. Uh, well, I guess I got to ask you this next question that's been on my mind. Since you've been in the culture for so long, and you've been running the show for the last 15 years, where do you think geek culture is going to be 5 or 10 years from now, or 20 years from now? I
I
don't know.
that yeah, that one I can honestly say I don't know because we've seen it actually in the last what 5, 6, 8 years I would say.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna quote David Glanzer, is a good friend. He's one of the organizers of San Diego Comic Con. Some of you have been there, you know
Hmm.
what it is.
Yep.
But when he was my first guest on the Geek Speak Show, and he's a really good friend since then. And we talk not just Comic Con and not just on the show. We just talk as friends sometimes because he is one of us. I'll say that
Hmm.
they don't just do Comic Con. He is a nerd, a geek. He's a huge Star Wars fan too. But we talked about that actually on the air. That was one of the first questions I asked him, and I agree with what he said. I always remember what he said every time I see, and I think you guys have talked about it in some of your episodes. Superhero fatigue,
Oh,
where
right.
people are going away because okay, it's enough. He said that all, not just superheroes, but all media, all movies, all genres, it's like a pendulum. They have their high point, but then it swings back down to the low point, but then it comes right back up again. It'll
Mhm.
be like westerns. Nobody cared about westerns. All of a sudden, now seems like they're reviving again
Right.
because of Yellowstone and all these westerns that we're getting now. Same thing with fantasy. Lord of the Rings obviously was a big one. Harry Potter was kind of fantasy also, but then it went away, and now they're starting to come back. I mean, Game of Thrones I think led it a little bit,
Hmm.
and it was a big thing, Game of Thrones, but then it went away. and now even Game of Thrones with their spin-offs, with their is it a prequel? The prequel shows that they have now. That I think that's what led to, we're getting the new Lord of the Rings again. We're getting, some other
Right.
fantasy shows again. So I'm seeing exactly what he said, that yeah, it's like a pendulum. It swings. So what you're saying, where is it going to be 5 years, 20 years from now? I don't know. It depends on where the pendulum is at that point for whatever
True. Yeah.
genre we're talking about.
Yeah, because like in my lifetime, I know I went from being the nerd, the shut in, the geek, the ones on the outside because of what we're interested in. But now, because of the MCU, I think because of Star Wars, DC a little bit, but mostly because of how big and popular it's become a part of pop culture. So I wonder if there's ever going to be a day where it's going to revert back to not being quite pop culture and going back to this kind of niche corner of the world where you're not cool anymore if you read comic books.
No, that I am proud to say that my kids and my grandkids, if I ever have any, they will not experience. They won't have the scars to show for it. I mean, I think
Mm,
we are part of this. I say we geeks, we are part of the zeitgeist permanently now. That part I will not change now, because yeah, you can blame it, not blame it, but you can put that on Star Wars for sure. You can put it on Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Hunger Games, all of these IPs that told people, even people that have never picked up a comic book ever in their life, when they go watch The Dark Knight, when they watch Nolan's The Dark Knight, they
hmm.
can watch it without knowing anything about Batman and just say, "This is a great freaking movie.
Yeah.
That I want to watch this movie, not a superhero movie." And that showed people, but especially studios, movie studios, that yeah, you can make billions of dollars with a great director or great movie. And oh yeah, they have tights too. Well, he didn't wear tights, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think maybe I'm just bitter because I know that when I was in junior high and high school,
Not you,
I
no.
couldn't. Yeah, I could, man, I could not tell anybody that I watched anime. Like I couldn't tell anybody that because it just was not acceptable. When I was on the football team, I wrestled, I played lacrosse, and I just could not tell anybody that I was into anime because that's just not, it wasn't allowed, and it's changed so much so fast. So I think
Wait, you never
yeah.
told me you played football. You couldn't. You No one on the team that you know of read comic books or liked the stuff.
Not that I knew of. I've come to find now that there were a few people that would watch anime and were into Star Wars, but mostly it was, the typical cool jock people in my area, in my school.
Yeah,
So I think, yeah, I think I remember putting I think it was my freshman year, right after like summer football. We had to go to the whole program in the football, and we're all friends already now. We start school, and I put a Final Fantasy VII sleeve in my binder, in the front of my binder. And one of the football players on the team was like, "What the heck is that, man?" I was like, "Ah, nothing, man. It's just it's nothing." And I ended up throwing it away. I just threw it away, and I replaced
it's
it
my
with like a
sister's. I don't know how it got there.
yeah, exactly. And I replaced it with a football picture, and I was yeah, and I remember that being, that was in 2008, 2009. I remember that being so different, or maybe 2000, no, I'm sorry, 2004, 2005. I remember that being so different, and then Iron Man comes out, the Hulk comes out, and then, everybody is cool with
Yeah.
it. So, unfortunately, it's right after I got out of high school, but, it's crazy how it's changed so much, and I think I just want everyone to feel a little bit of that struggle of being a geek.
Yeah.
But,
No, and it has changed, because I'm sure you see it in college for sure, but definitely in the NFL even. There are guys who I'm a Green Bay Packers fan, but we had a they had a running back, Amon Green. His nickname was Batman, because he's a huge Batman fan.
mm,
And when you make, their kind of salary, he had an entire room filled with Batman memorabilia. So he was
wow.
not hiding it at all. There are some people that wear, Batman, the Joker, whatever, or Spider Man, um, on their cleats, or they wear something that's superhero related on somewhere on the uniform where it can be seen. Because I think the NFL has rules where you can only have Nike, or Under Armour, or whatever brand is sponsored. You can only have that. It's kind of
Mhm.
dumb, but it's kind of cool. Some of the celebrations, the touchdown celebrations, I don't know if you saw it during the playoffs. We just had the Super Bowl. A lot of them were doing the thwip,
Oh,
the
right.
thwip thing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it is obviously more accepted now than it was in our time, I'll
Mhm.
say. And because professional athletes, they're proudly saying, yeah, I'm a Spider-Man fan, or I love Batman, I like Star Wars. Aaron Rodgers, another Packer, he always used to say, I'm a Jedi, like my father before me. I was like, okay, you couldn't say that, especially if you were the quarterback. You had
Mm,
to be the coolest. You couldn't say I'm a Jedi because they're like, how's your quarterback? But he said it, and like, he wasn't shy about it. So yeah, there's a lot more acceptance now
mm.
everywhere, not just in school.
Yeah, now that Pandora's box is open, it's not going back, which is it's good. I think it's
Yeah,
good for a geek. It's good for us to be more accepted now. But man, times were it was different in the dark times for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely. Do you have any like? So I know we've been talking to a lot of people recently about running a show and stuff, and so we've been doing this for 4 years. You're around 15 years, right? What are some of
Mhm.
the biggest takeaways from running a podcast? Good, bad. What would you tell somebody starting one now? All that good stuff.
Well, the biggest that I had to learn, not the hard way, but that I had to learn just by doing it, is that and it's the case with a lot of shows, not just specifically mine, but I see this with a lot of people, a lot of creators, a lot of people that start shows that have been doing it for a while. The With rare occasions, it's if you measure your success by the number of social media followers, you're gonna go crazy. Because
Hmm.
I've learned over 14, 15 years that just because you have a million followers on your Instagram or whatever doesn't automatically mean that that's going to translate to a million downloads, and same vice versa. Where if you have a million downloads, doesn't mean you're going to have a million followers. That's the case with the Geek Speak Show. In the beginning, my mistake was because I didn't really understand social media, and don't really care about it to this day.
Hmm.
Um, my mistake in the beginning when I started the Geek Speak Show was listening to people that said, "You need to get a million followers. You need to get this. You need to get that." And I spent a lot of the energy on trying to get followers instead of putting out great shows, great guests, great
Right.
interviews, great bit, whatever we did. Instead of using my energy on that, I wasted. Now looking back, and I can call it a waste. Wasted it on hashtagging and tagging this person and all that stuff, trying to get followers. And there was a point when it wasn't a million, but we did get like over close there, like almost 900,000 followers on an old social media account we had. But um, that's when I realized, wait, there's like 900 something followers, but we only get 7,000 downloads weekly,
Hmm.
regular. That's the ones I call the regular ones. So as the years went on, I realized, well, just because I have a million or nine whatever over here doesn't mean they're going to do that. So that's one of the first things I tell a lot of people that start this is don't judge, don't measure your success, the success of your pod if you do a podcast like this on how many followers you have, because that's
Hmm.
not the measure of it. Also, if you're going to monetize it, that ties into that also, because if you want to monetize it, if you go after smart sponsors and they know what they're doing, they don't care about social media followers unless you're going to advertise their product on social media. They don't care because those million followers will never see or hear the product. They need to know. I mean, they care about how many listeners you have, because that's where they're going to hear the commercial. That's where they're going to hear the product, not on social media. So
Hmm.
if you have a million followers but they're not advertising, they don't care. That's great. You have a million followers. What about what I'm spending money on? The show, the weekly show. How many listens do you have there? Well, I have 7,000 a week. Okay, good. We can work with that. That's what they care about. They don't care about followers either. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, today there are a lot more people from the social media generation, I'll call it, that they do care about followers, not making the connection that, well, those followers, they're never going to hear your product. You're not buying sponsorship time on social media. You're buying it on the show.
Hmm.
So those are things you have to worry about if you want to monetize. If you're doing this if you're just doing it as a hobby, then just have fun. Seriously, just
Yeah.
have fun with it. Don't worry about whether it sounds good or not. I
Mm.
mean, make it sound decent. You don't have to spend $1 million on equipment, but you make it sound decent. But just have fun. But if you really want to monetize it and treat it like a career, you got to treat it like a career, like a job. You've got to put in the time, the energy, the quality control, and also you got to learn the business side of things. You can't just do a show. And I know podcasting, a lot of people say, I want to do it because I can say whatever I want. Not really,
Yeah.
because even though there's no FCC or anything like that here, there are other laws. Not having an FCC or a governing body over a podcast doesn't mean that I can go on here and say, I'm not going to be specific, but yeah, here's where so and so lives. I think we should all go there and egg his or her house or whatever. That now is I'm threatening or I'm or I'm giving away private information. They can easily um, sue me or whatever, or I can't go on here and accuse actor so and so of sexual assault without any backing. I just want to say just because I don't like him. Okay, well there just because there's no FCC or no the guidelines are one thing, but they can also send their army of lawyers after you for defamation of character. It's like, okay, prove it, and now you're really in trouble because
Mm,
you don't have a lot of money, and if you do, you're not going to just trying to defend yourself. So there's that side also of things. You can't just say whatever you want, even if you
yeah.
think you're being funny.
Yeah. There's always a line, I think, when it comes to it. There's a little more freedom, I think, in the podcasting world than in radio, but
Yeah.
there's still a line you gotta run. What's in your opinion, what's the key to having to having a good show, to having a good interesting show, or being interesting, I guess?
I think was the second thing I said is not losing focus of why you're doing the show.
Mhm,
Like for example, you guys, it's Geek Off the Street. Why do you do it? Why did you start it? Because you love movies. I mean, you make movies, you watch movies, you consume movies, shows, all these things. You play video games, comic books. So does Mark. So did RJ when he was on here. Never lose sight of if you start focusing on I need to be famous, I need to be a star, I need to be this, I need to be that, I need to be invited to the premieres, I need to, that you already lost focus of the show.
mm,
If you have fun, if you enjoy talking, like again, going back to the beginning, that's why I like you guys. When you ask me why us, because you're fun, because it's guys, and it's guys that I can sit with in the room, not recording, not the show. We can just talk about stuff. When we're done recording Geek Speak episode, you guys come here. Um, we'll get pizza, food, whatever,
and we
and
stay
we're
all
sitting
day.
around just talking. Yeah,
Yeah,
but you guys sound like that on the show, and because I know you personally, I know that's them. They're not being fake. That's Mark, that's Trent, that RJ when he was on.
mhm,
That's them. A lot of people that I also get to know, I know that what they're putting on there is fake. It's an act. And sometimes you can tell it's horrible. You believe me, people can tell when number one, you don't even know how to pronounce the names of the artists, the writers, the directors, the
mhm.
actors. You have no idea what the story is about. You just jump on. I hate this because Rotten Tomatoes gave it a bad score because everybody doesn't like it. Well, what about you? Are you just a robot and don't like it because everybody, or do you have your own thoughts like you do? I love you're a lot like me, you Trent. I love when you say no. You may like something or not like something. Usually it's not like, but when you don't like something and everybody else does, what's your answer? Well, screw you guys. That's what I love about you. That's you. That's 100% Trent.
Mm. Oh, I appreciate that, and yeah, that's right. You're honest about it, but
Yeah.
I do
Well,
appreciate
well,
that.
that's what I'm saying is because
Yeah.
a lot of people that I see that I hear doing whether they have a TikTok, whatever it is, it's like they're afraid to actually have their own original thoughts
Mhm.
because that's also another reason why I don't take a lot of these things seriously because they all say the same thing. And
Right.
sometimes they wait. Well, let me see what so and so is thinking. Who cares? Well, I'm here on this channel to see what you're thinking, not what
Mhm.
so and so on another channel thinks.
Yeah, and then especially as a geek, as a deep geek in this world, it's pretty easy to sniff out someone who's not being genuine,
Yeah.
based on like knowledge or even personality or the way they carry themselves. It's pretty easy to sniff that out. And I think being genuine, I agree 100%. Being genuine, being yourself, and being genuine is the best way to have a good show. I think. So as much as
Yeah.
I
Well,
sometimes.
another
uh,
thing. Yeah, go ahead.
no, I said as much as I sometimes wish I was a little less cynical. I mean, that's just who I am, so I can't really change that completely.
Yeah, I said then it wouldn't be you if you were.
Mhm, exactly, exactly.
Yeah. No, but the other thing I was going to throw in, what answering again with the question you just asked is another. It used to be a complaint from co-hosts that were on for a little bit. They would always say, "I only on the Geek Speak Show. I only hear you talk about things that Henry likes," and it's true to this day. You still do, but that's tied into exactly what I just finished telling you. I'm not gonna talk about. I mean, I'll talk about DC, but usually I talk about it when I have you or someone that knows DC because I don't know DC. I don't know DC the way I know Marvel because
Mhm.
I know Batman because I read those comic books, but I don't know the comic book storylines and like most comic books, a lot of those characters, the DC characters, they've gone through a lot of iterations over the years. So
Mhm.
I'm not familiar with all the storylines. I'm familiar with the older ones, but that nobody remembers those anymore. It's a completely different story. Like the Lanterns, the Green Lantern stories. There's always so many stories on that one. So many
Yeah.
characters that have been the Lantern that had the ring. So I never watched Game of Thrones, so I don't really talk about it because I'm
Mhm.
gonna sound dumb if I try to talk about it because I don't know anything about it. Like when everyone's talking about, um, what was the one with the massacre that everybody got killed?
Is that the Red Wedding or no? That's not the
I
Red
think
Wedding.
so. I
Yeah,
don't know. I
I didn't
never
watch it
watched
either.
it, but
So
everybody's
yeah.
talking about the red wedding and everybody dies. Like, okay, Henry, how come you didn't talk about it? Because I don't watch it. And the thing is, and you know this. I mean, again, I bring up Andor. There it is, right there. I'm not afraid to tell people that I didn't enjoy something, but
Mm,
at the same time, if you notice, I'm not telling you that you're dumb or you suck because you actually enjoyed Andor. Great, that you had fun
mm,
doing it. It just wasn't for me. That's
yeah.
all.
That's fair. Yeah, that's I'm glad we could say that because you and I are both huge Star Wars fans, and I enjoyed Andor.
Yeah,
You didn't, and a lot of hardcore Star Wars fans didn't, but then a lot did. So I think it's yeah, no, I
yeah,
agree, 100%,
yeah.
definitely.
And with you know when we talk about it with Andor, I've never said I hated it. I watched it. I mean, if I
Mhm.
hated it, I just wouldn't have watched it at all. I watched
Right.
it. I watched it a few times, in fact, trying to see, okay, what am I missing? Is it me or what's not speaking to me? But it's. I think the last time you guys were on, I explained that to me, it watching it again. This is like the 12th time I watch it. It it's more like a Star Trek show to me, more than a Star Wars show, and I think that's
Mm,
what it is because I like the characters, I like the stories that are in there. Yes, it's talking about the Empire and all of that, but a lot of it, I see it as more like Star Trek drama, if you will, not really
right.
Star Wars. Star Wars to me, again, I just explained when I first saw it, I'm always gonna see Star Wars as that 4-year-old kid,
Mm,
where I want when I watch Star Wars, I don't want a lesson in this is how empires rise. This is how emperors become. Okay, great. Now beat them. Go fight them, Yoda. I don't care about how they became emperors or how they fell to the dark
mhm,
side. I just want you to fight. That's all I care about. Star Trek, I don't want fighting there. That's where I want lessons, human lessons. So that's why I like both for those two reasons.
mm.
Star Trek for that, Star Wars just to have fun, just fight. That's all I care about.
Maybe I need to start watching Star Trek then, huh? uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I tell a lot of people
yeah.
today. I mean, we you weren't on that one, but when we did the first one, we talked about woke, the woke stuff,
Mhm.
and I mentioned and Mark agreed. If you want to talk about woke, the wokest show still is Star Trek, the original Star Trek, because a lot of the things, well, it's not woke because we talked about and they couldn't answer. I mean, let me ask you now that you're here. When you hear that word woke, to you, what does it mean?
I think because of where we all went Hollywood wise, and it kind of makes me think of like DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion movement, all that kind of stuff in the especially with the MCU and Star Wars. That's what it is to me. I don't think that's what it's supposed to mean or it was originally supposed to mean, but being woke mean that it has a negative connotation in my mind based on how it's affected media. I think, but
Yeah.
that's what my thoughts were. But
Yeah. No, it is. You're right. It is now, the word woke, but it's like a blanket statement that if you don't like something, you just throw woke. Oh, it's woke. It's woke. It's woke.
mhm,
You have
mhm.
you have no legit reason for not liking something other than it's woke. But the word woke, the meaning, it has changed a lot over decades. But woke, the original meaning of woke was what today would be more progressive. That's Star Trek, the original series. It was a
Okay.
very progressive show for its time, for the '60s, and it still is. Star Trek always has been and should be. To me, today the word woke. When I hear that, I don't think I said it on Geek Speak. I'll give it to you guys. To me, woke is the same as saying fake, because you are
Mm,
virtue signaling that, hey, look, we have black people. Look, we have black people. Look, we have people of color. Look, we have women. We have this. We have that. And you kind of like when I said, don't waste. I wasted my energy on trying to get followers instead of great content. You're wasting your energy, your creative energy, on making sure you hit quotas, you don't upset, whoever, that then your show or movie is boring, and then you're wondering why come people don't like it. Well, you must be homophobe. You must be phobe this, phobic that.
Yeah.
But it's not, and you already lost the whole vision of why you became a filmmaker to begin with.
Yeah. No, yeah. Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, that's tough. And so I have a couple of friends that have been talking about starting a podcast. I got one friend that did start a podcast, another one that's starting one next month, and
Tell them no, run away.
yeah, exactly. And they were asking me questions about it, and I didn't realize that I was a person that could be asked to give advice on that. But we've been doing this for 4 years now, so being able to kind of help people with those issues and the things that I saw when I first started has been kind of nice to pass that on. So I know that you did that for us when we first started, gave us a lot of information, a lot of help, a lot of guidance, and it's been kind of nice to pass it over to the next round of people that are trying to get started. But yeah, but no, that's good advice. Just stay away because it's tough. It's hard. It's hard to do it. It's
Yeah.
hard to do a show, man. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of commitment, and it's not. I have so much fun.
Well, wait. Let me ask you, not
Yeah.
putting you on the spot, but
Uh-huh.
you're not the first one to say that. I mean, a lot of different people, not just with geek related content, just any show, whether it's sports, whatever it is. I hear everybody say that it's hard doing a show. What makes it hard?
So, once Mark gets on here, he can comment a little bit too about each of our roles on the show, but it uh it it it's the workload for what we do on our show with the multicam editing and doing the shows weekly. It's a lot of work on the production side and the editing side. I put in probably 8 to 10 hours of just editing a week for the show. In addition to like uploading and doing that kind of stuff, getting the clips ready for upload. So it's a lot of work on that side. I love more than anything to record the show. Like recording the show is so much fun. The sessions that we do is the most fun. But it's the outside stuff that people don't really realize, that you have to do the editing, you have to do the planning, you have to do the outlining, you have to watch the show you're talking about, and then you have to edit, upload, get it up at the right time every week. It's a lot of work. So if you don't love it, if you don't love what you're either talking about or the process of it, it's hard to keep it going. Because I've always said this to everybody, that the editing side is not what my strength is, or not what I enjoy doing. So like when it comes to making movies or videos or anything like that, I don't like editing. That's not my thing. But I do it every day for the show. So it's one of those things. It's like, if you love it enough, like what kind of work are you willing to put into doing it? I think. And so that's probably the hardest part, is that. And then I'll let Mark in here. And having to work with Mark all the time
Right
also
on
is
cue.
pretty tough, because we gotta work together, do the show together, and it's yeah, that's also one of the tough parts about it. So
Oh, I can hear you, Trent. I can hear you.
oh, did you hear the
I
whole?
don't know if
Were you
you.
able to hear the whole
Oh,
conversation, or yeah,
sorry, man. I don't know if you heard that.
yeah, no,
If you meant for me to hear that, not sure. I
yeah, no, I don't
apologize.
know what it's
Yeah.
like
Not.
in the
I can't even
lobby.
argue. I can't even argue. He's right. You're not lying, man. It's got to be a headache.
Yeah,
It's got to be a
it does a
headache.
lot of work, but it's a
Oh,
commitment
Mark
to
only heard the
some.
good parts. He spent this like 20 minutes talking about all the negatives about having
Mhm.
Mark as a co-host.
Yeah, doing a show and all kind of stuff.
But you know that. I mean,
Yeah,
it's what
Yeah.
par for the course around here.
But yeah, no, we're just talking about the
man.
biggest takeaways of doing a show, man. But Henry was like the perfect person to ask about that. And then we were talking a little bit about
Right on.
how, like, Wilbur's starting a show here in a few months, and I've had another friend start a show, and they've been asking about advice on how to do it. So it's been
Well,
kind
no,
of
no, no,
cool
wait,
that.
wait. No, because I kind of put him on the spot when you jumped in, Mark. By the way, hi, Mark. How are you?
Uh-huh.
Hey, Mark,
But
welcome to the
no,
show, man.
he was no, because he was
Thanks,
saying
guys.
it's. I tell people it's hard, and I said, wait, because you're not the first person to tell me that. Everybody says that wants to do this, that it's hard. Um, and I said, why? Why is it hard? What makes it hard to do a show?
Mm. Yeah,
That's what we're talking about.
yeah, that's what we're talking about pretty much. And I was basically just complaining and venting about all the hardest parts about doing the show. So, but yeah, if you want
And
to,
my name came up.
yeah, if you want to jump in, Mark, if you've noticed anything, any of the takeaways or any advice you'd give to people that are starting their own show, what would you say?
Yeah, don't do it. Just run, hit for the hills, find another life path.
That's exactly what
That's
I
my
said.
advice. No, I think honestly, the hardest part, I think the hardest thing with almost anything is just getting started, taking that first step. I don't know if you guys said that already, but I know a friend of mine that he does a lot of different things, and he's does some carpentry style work, and he always said like the hardest part is making that first cut, because you second guess and you remeasure and you like, am I getting it right? Am I ready? Kind of thing. So yeah, just forcing yourself to do anything, no matter what it might be, I think is what I would really recommend. I mean, sure, you want to try to have as high quality of whatever as you can, but yeah, I think that's the hardest thing. And then if I had to make a recommendation, like try to find like your niche or your own style. If you should really have something to say. If you want to do a podcast, you should have something that you do actually want to talk about and can talk about. So yeah, just try to get your ducks in a row that way. That's some of the biggest things I would recommend. But yeah, just getting started it would be my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah.
Trent,
I got to take a quick time out before you guys go any further. Henry, I love that shirt, man.
yeah, I wore it just
I
for
love
you.
that
Seriously.
shirt. Love this guy.
Yeah.
That is dope.
No,
That
there
is
was a
very dope.
reason why I wore it, because I knew we were going to go somewhere. We actually just talked about the original series first for a little bit, but that's why. Yeah, that is why I wore it.
Mm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I was going to wear the red one, but then I thought, nah, maybe not. Maybe not the red one. Not for this.
Oh, you got a red one too?
Yeah, I think I have. I got this at. Wasn't a Star Trek. It was WonderCon, actually, when it was still back in
I was
San
saying,
Francisco.
don't tell me it was the place where they had the jackets.
And you couldn't buy one.
No, no, it was long before
Don't support
that.
those people.
Yeah,
Man,
it was
Mark,
long before. No, it was actually there. I actually tried it on and everything. Not
no,
to
no
bring up
offense to
bad
Mark.
memories
Mark,
for you.
no offense to you, Mark. Your memory is spotty here and there, but that you're never gonna ever forget that you wanted to buy that jacket and you couldn't get it.
I've never forgotten it. I knew exactly what he was talking
Yeah.
about.
You're both right. I'm never gonna forget. It's burned. It should be burned into all of our memories. And yeah, my memory is like me and Trent
Now
could be talking
listen,
about
for
something. I
everybody
remember what we
watching.
said.
No, for everybody watching, I'm gonna say we're not. I'm not gonna. I know you're wondering, like, who are you talking about? I'm not gonna say the name one because he's a friend of mine. Whoops, he's a friend of mine, so I'm not gonna say the name. But I know exactly who you're talking about. But I will say, I think I told you, Mark, last year at Comic-Con, they actually had a sign that said, "You have to order online; they're not available here." And as soon as I saw that, I said, I wonder why they have that sign now.
Because they had that one irate guy that they had to drag out of the store.
You're like that 4-year-old
That was
version
so
scene where
annoying.
he was
They
like,
didn't drag you out; they beamed you out
oh, gotcha.
politely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They beam me out. Yes.
Let's see what Jonah
But
Hill.
yeah, like you were saying, Trent, like
Yeah.
40-year-old version,
Yeah,
right?
I just want to buy
I just
these.
want to buy it.
I just want to buy these. He's like, it's not that simple. Like,
It's right here. Why
yeah,
are you making this
No,
difficult?
but what I was going to ask you, Trent. We started this because Trent, you said you had some friends that wanted to start their own, and they were asking you for advice. Have they started it, whatever they were going to do, or not yet? Or were you just asking for a friend?
No, one guy did start a show, and he had his second episode come out a little bit ago. And I didn't even know he was actually like getting ready to go. And then Wilbur, our friend, the author, he's going to start a show about books and what's called Books and Bourbon coming out. So yeah, so he wants to release in April. I'm gonna do some editing for him on his episodes, but yeah.
Well, I'm asking you that because if you want, you can say no, your show. If you want, that's actually one of the services I offer with my production company. It's a sit-down consultation session. If you want, I can give you a free one, not fully, but a free one right now for anybody, not just your friends, but anybody that wants to start, a platform or something.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'll connect you with that because I know.
That's actually, that's a really good idea because I'm sure you guys, hopefully you guys already talked about it. I know we've talked about it before. Like, Henry, you have a lot of experience in this arena. I mean, you have like your history of doing radio, and you got your history of doing like podcasts and all that kind of stuff. Like you've been doing it for a long time. You're like one of the OGs at it. So that's a great offer. It's a great offer. If
Yeah.
anybody hearing that is curious about jumping into it
Yeah.
and wants to get a head start, as opposed to just, going in, I was gonna say going in raw, but going in just kind of, what do I do? I'm just going to start doing stuff and see what
Went in
happens.
blindly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Get on that right path. That's a good idea.
Yeah. 'Cause
So here,
Yeah. If
let's do
anybody's
this.
considering that, take advantage of that.
Mhm.
Here, I'll start the session. This is how I consult people. If you two have any questions, feel free to throw them in. But the first thing when I sit down with someone that says, "Hey, I need a consultation," help me. I don't know where to get started, basically. So the first thing I tell them is, um, honestly answer, not just for followers. Why are you doing this show? And when I mean why is for Trent, for Mark. What's the reason you're doing it? To be popular, to say whatever you want, to get followers? What is the reason for it? Because you love this? What's the reason? So once you can honestly look in the mirror, not YouTube, but I mean whoever we're talking to, once you can honestly look in the mirror and tell yourself the end game. I was gonna say the light at the end of the tunnel, but that's kind of morbid. Once you see the end game, then once you see the finish line, you know how to run the race. That's a better way to put it, more
Mhm.
positive. So if for example, let's say your goal is because people have always told me I have a voice for radio, I should be on the radio, and I just want to try it out. I'm not going to be on the radio, so let me try out this podcast and things. Say, okay, good. So the first thing is, um, are you afraid to talk? Kind of like Trent, you mentioned earlier, your family can't believe. Wait, he talks. So if you're that kind of person, are you comfortable? Number one, talking to, and this is a problem that a lot of people have, are you comfortable with people listening to your voice? Because a lot of people, they can't listen to their own voice after they record the show. Now,
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
cool, fine, whatever. But that's also a problem because then how are you going to edit it? How are you going to listen? Like me, when people first meet me and like when we travel anywhere, they travel with me. Like when we went to Comic Con, I may listen to Geek Speak episodes. They may not tell me, but a lot of them are thinking in their heads, "Oh, this guy's like egotistical, loves listening to his own voice." That's not what it is. I'm listening to any mistakes, and especially listen to older shows. If I get bored, then I make mental notes. Okay, don't talk about that or don't talk like that because it's boring. If I'm getting bored, they got bored 10 minutes ago. They being the
Mhm.
listeners. So that's the first step is honestly answering, why are you doing this show? Is it just to be famous, just to be popular, just for followers? If it is, if that is the answer, then honestly just do it. Don't really worry about too much. Now if you want to make it a business, if you want to monetize, if you want to get paid, go to premieres, movie premieres, all these things, then I tell them right off the bat, you need to understand that it's not going to, it needs to be a business from right now. Before you even do your first episode, you need to treat it as a business. In fact, you may even need to LLC it legally because you're going to get money coming in anyway. And as we all know, government, if you make 3 pennies, they want 2 of those pennies. So you've got to know the business side, or you will be in trouble for it. Even if you make $10, somebody gives you a donation of $10 or whatever. You got to know the business side of things if you're going to monetize it. If you want to make it into a career, a job. If you want to leave whatever you're doing now, and I want to do this full time. It sounds fun. All you do is talk to celebrities and go to Comic Con, do these kind of things. Then you really have to. You're gonna have to suffer a little bit, kind of like starving artists. You're gonna have to starve in the beginning. I never tell people leave your job, but I highly suggest it. If you want to, yeah, leave it if you can, and devote your entire time and attention, energy to that show. Because cliche, but if you build it, they will come. If you just throw it out there, maybe one or two will come and probably leave after. But if you're consistent, if you're giving good quality, yeah, they'll come back. Like, Mark, we were talking about this earlier. I reminded him 4 years ago when we first met. His question to me over and over was, "Why us? Why'd you pick us?" And that's why. What makes me come back to you guys is that you guys are genuinely you when you're doing the shows. You're not putting on airs. You're not pretending to well I know everything, and so and so says this, so I'm going to repeat what they say. No, you guys are you. I was telling Trent, what I love about him is a little bit like me. When he likes, or usually it's doesn't like something, and everybody else does, what's his answer? Screw you guys, I like it.
Everybody else is wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, that's genuinely trend, and nowadays it's refreshing because we live in a world where what does Rotten Tomatoes say? What does I mean, they're called followers for a reason. You're in that echo chamber.
Ooh,
Everybody loves this or
Mm,
everybody hates this, so that's
nice.
what you're supposed to do. So to hear a fresh voice, one is another thing I tell them in the consultation. If you're going to do this seriously and you're going to have your own voice out there and you're going to go against the grain, if you will, because everybody loves this show, but I like it, or everybody loves this show and I hate it because of this. Be ready for what comes with it. A lot of people cannot take rejection. They It's the end of the world, but they don't get a job that they really wanted. They don't, the coffee ran out at Starbucks when they were the next person in line. And it's the end of the world. It's so they have it against. It's not. It's just the way things are. So same thing here today, especially in geek culture and movie land. We have this thing called cancel culture. Culture.
Mhm.
So if you say I love this show, well then you must be a Nazi, you must be a homophobe, you must be a that, and we can't listen to you guys anymore. So be ready for that. I've dealt with this the radio, not so much on Geeks because I don't really get into that stuff here. I mean, I don't say anything that could offend anybody, or at least I try to. I could be saying hi, and I just offended 900 people, so you never know. But I've lived with that my entire career. I've had death threats, literal death threat. I'm still here, obviously, so nothing happened.
Damn.
But the way you deal with I mean, the first couple times, no one's ever threatened my life or playing music or whatever. So I was terrified. And you have to report to the police, and it becomes real. Then it's like, whoa, police is here, so it's real, and you do get scared. It's like, wait, is my house gonna blow up? Is my car gonna blow up when I get in it?
Mhm.
But after the fifth one, it you don't not care, but it's more like, okay, it's not me, it's them, because you do start questions like, wait, what did I say that makes people want to kill me? So you've got to develop, kind of like being an actor, being in Hollywood, you've got to develop a tough skin, because if you can't take rejection, this is going to be a very tough business, even if it's just a podcast or just a video show. And I don't know what it is about creatives. There can be 900 Trent, your movie's great, this is so awesome, I love it, but the one comment that says you suck, you don't know what you're doing, that
Yeah.
ends your world. I don't want to do this ever again. No, screw this guy. I quit. You always focus on the one negative, even if there's 900 positive comments and they all love it. I know what that is. It's a tough thing, but with anything created that where you're going to put yourself in the public eye, you have got to develop um, that thick skin. In plain English, that means you really have to not care. I mean, I think you two have realized, knowing me for 4 years, I really don't care. When I say I don't care what people think or don't think about me, I really don't care. I put what I do out there. If you love it, great. If you don't, I don't care, because I'm on to the next show. So you can stay there ranting, raving, whatever. I'm still doing what I love. And you can rant and rave about the next thing I do. That's the attitude that I have, and that's the attitude that a lot of people need to have, so that they don't care. They don't get stuck on that one negative comment. Um, and the other thing that I tell them in the consulting thing is the financial part, and not making money or spending money. Well, it is spending money, but it's the equipment what we're all on. You may think I have to spend millions of dollars to sound great. It's 2025. No, you don't. You can get go on Amazon. They have that. Yeah, they're, you can call them cheap knockoffs, but they're cheap, not that cheap, but they're knockoffs of like this one. Like this microphone I'm on, this is like a $300 microphone. I have some that it's like $1,000 microphone. Those are used for voiceover stuff. But there's some models on Amazon that are $60, $80, and they give you the exact same sound. You may not have, I mean, you don't see anything here, but it may not say Shure or whatever brand you have on there. But so what? You're not, are you going to give everybody free advertising? You guys see, I don't have anything other than Star Trek. I'm not advertising anything. So as long as it makes you sound good. And the other thing is, you got to meet someone like me or someone that really knows audio. It's the setting. You can get a cheap microphone or cheap um, mixer, but as long as you know how to set it, you're going to sound like you're in $1 million studio. So it's the setting. So all of those things, those are the beginnings of the consultations that I do. But that's once we get the answers to that, then we have direction. Why are you doing this show? Can you take what comes with it, the responsibility? With great power comes great responsibility. That's what comes with it. Can you take how people are going to react to you, and how much money to spend or not spend on equipment to sound good?
Yeah.
And I'll send you the
actually
invoice
sounds
in
good.
a little bit.
I'll pass
Say
it
it
on.
again?
Send me the invoice.
I said I'll send you the invoice in a bit.
I'll pass it on to Wilbur. He's the one asking. So.
No, I mean, a
That's
real
good,
one.
though. Yeah.
Obviously, we go into more detail, but that's basically how we get started. When someone says, "Hey, can you consult me?" and on starting the show or whatever it is, whether it's YouTube, whatever the show is going to be. That's how we started. And once we answered those 3 basic questions, then we know where to go.
Yeah.
And that's a good start. So that way, you know exactly what your goal is. You got that North Star, and then you can, then it also helps you put out like a quality piece of, media, talking about the, equipment and all that kind of stuff to get and to buy.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, some good advice, man.
That's good.
Yeah, but no. So we've been just talking a little bit about that for the most part. We talked about Henry's origin story, and talked about the beginning of the show, and so we've been having a good conversation about that. Now that you're here, Mark, we're pretty much done, so we're just gonna call it now.
Okay, see you guys. Bye, everybody. Catch you next time.
No. Wait. Now that Mark's here, now we can go for 6 hours.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Yeah, now I can officially hit the record button because we haven't been recording at all. We've just been chatting, having a good time like we usually do.
Just hanging out. Out.
Yeah, like whenever we go to Henry's house, we're there for like 18 hours.
Well, wait. Now that you're both here, I'm not gonna sing, but I told you we're gonna bring cake. I don't have an actual cake, but I do have that.
Oh,
can you see it?
The hostess cupcake.
It's a cupcake. Actually, my son got me that after I had my my gallbladder taken out surgery a few years ago. I can't eat stuff like that anymore. And he said, "Here, Dad, this is the only cupcake you'll see from now on."
From now on.
Hey, is that nice or kind of mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell that's thoughtful.
But there you go. I told you I was going to bring cake. I brought a cupcake.
There it is.
I appreciate it. I think.
But seriously, happy anniversary to the 2 of you for 4 years.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
It's crazy.
It's been a long time.
Thanks.
I still can't believe how long we've been doing this, man. 4 years is a long time, longish time,
right?
But I mean, it went by so fast, and it's long but not long, I guess. But I mean, just think that we've been sitting and recording the show for this long, man. It's funny to look back on.
Yeah, every time it comes up, every time that anniversary comes around, it's like it's another year already.
Yeah,
is that right? Are you sure?
I was gonna say, think about this. Look how fast 4 years went. You keep doing it, before you know it, it's 8 years, then a decade.
Yeah.
Me and Trent together for a decade.
Oh my gosh, man! I don't even know about that. You may have just caused the downfall of the show, Henry. I put it into that perspective.
Wait, a minute ago you said I hope you guys start. I hope you guys end too.
Yeah, you both helped us start and end the show, Henry. But yeah, no, for sure.
That is a great point, though, man. I know me and Trent have talked about this a bunch of different times. I know we've mentioned it to you before too, and we said it on the show. But the fact that you did reach out to us when you did, it really was this great piece of validation that it's that encouragement that somebody kind of new needs to hear, or it's very helpful to hear. You know what I mean? Like just having someone that's been in this game for a while was like, hey, I'm going to talk to you guys. I want to, get you guys to that next level, whatever way I can. So,
yeah.
No, we appreciate that.